After hearing the evidence from our team of prosecutors, the grand jury voted to return an indictment against Detective Hankinson for 3 counts of wanton endangerment for wantonly placing the 3 individuals in apartment 3 in danger of serious physical injury or death. According to Kentucky law, the use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves. This justification bars us from pursuing criminal charges in Miss Breonna Taylor's death.
Today, we received a heartbreaking announcement by Kentucky's Attorney General Daniel Cameron that a grand jury came down with 1 indictment in the no-knock warrant case of Breonna Taylor. The grand jury indicted Officer Brett Hankinson with 3 counts of wanton endangerment for endangering the neighbors of Breonna Taylor during the police shooting that killed her. The other 2 officers, Jonathan Mattingly and Miles Cosgrove, were not charged at all. It's an insult and slap in the face to every Black American that not only was 1 cop charged, but that he was charged with endangering and harming everyone within the proximity of the shooting except Breonna Taylor. And by that, I mean that the wanton law, which Brett Hankinson was charged with, refers to an act of putting someone in danger or harm. But according to the charge, the former detective was indicted on endangering Breonna Taylor's neighbors by recklessly firing his gun during the raid on her apartment. So let's be clear. Not one of the 3 officers were charged with killing Breonna Taylor. For all the t-shirts we wore, the sneakers we embossed, the sporting events we stopped, and the protest we did peacefully plan. Not one of those officers were charged with any wrongdoing when it comes to the murder of Breonna Taylor. An ultimate, audacious, and resounding pimp slap in the face of Black America. Tonight, I want to start the Tammi Mack Late Show with someone who can help us sort out all of this logistically, legally, emotionally, and mentally. Please welcome Attorney Carl Douglas to clear our heads. Hi, Attorney Douglas.
Tammi Mack, good to see you again, girl. Glad to be on your show.
It's so good to see you. And I want to thank you because I know how busy you are right now for stopping down to talk about this case that everyone in America knows about simply because of its publicity alone. Now, the Attorney General said that Kentucky's law says that there was absolutely no reason to charge any of these officers. Can you help us get there?
Sure. And what your listeners have to understand, Tammy, is there's often a difference between the law and justice. I understand clearly the frustration of the peaceful protesters because Hankinson, the main officer, was not charged for being responsible for the death. But there's a reality that I think all of your listeners have to understand. One, an attorney general is a political position. So there are political implications on everything that is done. Second, officers are rarely charged nationwide for acts that take place during the course and scope of their employment as officers. And third, there's a practical reality. In spite of all of the circumstances, if someone inside of a house fires a weapon in the direction of a cop, the cops are gonna open up. So that's the reality of life. And there are few prosecutors that are ever going to prosecute a cop for returning fire in the course of his duties and employment. If there was no warrant, that might be a problem. If the boyfriend had not fired first, that might be a problem. But in America, if you fire a gun at a cop, they're gonna open up, and there's not a jury in America that would ultimately hold the cop criminally responsible. Now, at the same time, Tammi Mack, there was a lot that went wrong. Officers tried to implicate Breonna wrongfully. There was, in fact, injustice. So I'm heartened to see that the city paid $12 million to Breonna's family. They paid $12 million in a little more than 6 months. That's how municipalities say, I'm sorry. They agreed to reforms. That's how they say we did something wrong. So I understand the outrage in the streets, Tammi Mack, but on the civil side, they paid $12 million, a record amount, and that's the consequence of all of the political pressure that was put to bear on the city of Louisville.
So what do you say, though, to people who have been fighting and protesting, Attorney Douglas, that say $12 million does not a daughter make? And to those who say that the family accepted the $12 million in exchange for no charges?
No amount of money is ever gonna bring Breonna Taylor back. And it is regrettable, Tammi Mack, that you gotta follow the money for real change. I've been in this game for 40 years here in Los Angeles, which I say is ground zero.
Yeah.
There was a time when the police would put chokeholds on brothers in Los Angeles, where the police chief would say, Black people have a different structure in their neck, and that's why they seem to die. Well, in 1984, we at Johnnie Cochran's office took the police on, and we got verdicts and settlements, and they had to start paying money. And when they started paying money, the police department made changes. It is regrettable that you have to follow the money. It is regrettable that there's this emptiness in the family of Breonna Taylor. But that tree of racism is a mighty tree, Tammi Mack.
Yeah.
And I suggest we got to keep whacking that tree down. It's not going to fall with any one whack. But if we keep whacking that tree of injustice down, I am hopeful that that tree is going to fall sooner or later. It's going to take more, regrettably. But I'm hopeful that in time, justice will prevail.
Let me give you a scenario. Let's say task force officers execute a no-knock warrant on a white drug dealer in his white girlfriend's home. Do we have the same verdict here? Do we have the same outcome, I should say?
Tammi Mack, to be clear, my dear, racism is institutional. White officers are afraid of Black men. If one of those officers had been Black, they would not have fired 32 shots into that apartment complex. I say, Mr. Walker, her boyfriend, only fired 1 shot. But those 2 officers fired 22 shots without anything coming in response. That is excessive, I say. They should have been charged with endangering, I say. Hankinson was in the other side of the apartment building. He didn't know who was shooting. And all he did was just start opening up and just firing blindly into the house. Now he got fired. They did charge one of the apartment complexes of a white family where bullets did enter their apartment. But I'm told there was a Black family as well that bullets went into their apartment as well. And he wasn't charged with those crimes.
So let's talk about that. Why is it more of a crime that the bullets were flying everywhere, but not a crime that the bullets went into Breonna Taylor and killed her?
Clearly, well, certainly, I'm not defending what happened. I'm just explaining to you and listen to the reality of the circumstance.
And that's what we need to hear right now.
And certainly, if he was wantonly reckless in firing his weapon and the bullet struck another neighbor, it was wanton reckless firing into her apartment as well, given the circumstances. So clearly, the prosecutor could prosecute a ham sandwich if the prosecutor wanted to. The prosecutor made a decision to not bring reckless manslaughter charges because you can't fire your weapon in self-defense and shoot an innocent bystander. When there was one shot fired, you can't return 22 shots in return and figure you can be justified. One of the cops, Tammi Mack, fired 16 shots. He was not the one that was struck. That means he emptied every bullet in his gun, his clip. They hold 15 plus 1 in the gun. He opened up 16 times without there being any return fire. That to me is excessive.
And
He should have been
endangering.
charged with reckless endangerment.
Yes.
But
So-
we don't know what they brought to the grand jury.
So there it is.
It's a political process, Tammi Mack.
But they could have very well charged these officers.
If they thought that the facts justified bringing charges under Kentucky law. I'm not an expert of Kentucky law.
Right.
But I know in Los Angeles, Tammi Mack, there have been 622 occasions of people dying at the hands of police officers in the last 8 years. 622 times, and only one time has Jackie Lacey, the district attorney, a Black woman, an alumni of mine from Susan Miller Dorsey High School, only one time has she ever brought charges. So it's not just Daniel Cameron in Kentucky.
Right.
It's not just Jackie Lacey here in Los Angeles County,
Yeah.
the most liberal county in America. It's because there's such deference given to police officers nationwide that it's so difficult ever to convict them of a crime when in duty. You have Tammi Mack, Philander Castile on Facebook Live. His girlfriend is videotaping it. The cop shoots him while he tells him, I'm going for a gun. They bring charges against the shooter and he is found not guilty. But the city paid $6 million to the family of Mr. Castile because they knew the shooting was wrong. In the civil context, regrettably, we take compensation for the city to tell us that, and even then, they admitted no wrongdoing. But they paid $12 million,
Absolutely.
the largest in history, before they even knew about criminal charges. That is some modicum of solace. Not complete, but
Right.
some modicum of solace. It's a new day in America when you can get $12 million for a Black person in 6 months' time.
And you say that is because of all of the publicity that Breonna Taylor's case has drawn.
Every one of those people who voted for that settlement was a politician, Tammi Mack. Every one of them watched the news reports.
Wow.
Every one of them see the Black Lives Matter on the courts of the NBA playoffs. They see Roger Goodell saying Black Lives Matter. They read about Ben & Jerry's corporate statement. Tammi Mack, I never had any Ben & Jerry's ice cream until I read their corporate statement. Bought me some Ben & Jerry's ice cream.
I must admit, I've definitely eaten my share of Ben & Jerry's and then found out about their corporate statement and was like, oh, let's buy up some more.
Absolutely right. So, I'm 65 years old, so I get it.
Right.
I'm not saying be satisfied, my people, but change moves like a mountain, like a cruise liner, not a racing boat, not a speedboat. Change moves at the pace of an ocean liner, Tammi Mack, not a speedboat. Absolutely. I wish it were different, but it's not that way.
Before you get out of here, I do want to ask you about, because you are representing the family of Dejan Kazee, who was struck 15 times by LA Sheriff's deputies. The officer's response is that Kazee had a gun. However, it stated that he did not. So was this plan, what is going to happen here? Will we see a civil suit here? Because obviously these officers are not going to get charged either.
Yes, ma'am. Dijon Kazee, 29 years old, was riding a bicycle in South Los Angeles. Officers who weren't even supposed to be patrolling traffic cases try to stop him, and he runs with clothing in his hands. There's a struggle that ensues in broad daylight. 10, 15 people may have been in the neighborhood just watching. There's a struggle. Clothes fall to the ground. A gun falls to the ground, Tammi Mack. In America, I hate to say it, if you're carrying a gun and a police officer sees you and a gun falls to the ground, you move 1 inch toward the ground and they're gonna light you up because they're afraid. It's contrary to their training, but they're gonna light you up. Just like good people. If you're running from a police officer and you turn and place your hand toward that officer, he's gonna light you up just in Atlanta. I don't care if you had a water pistol in your hand. If you turn and point to the cop that's running away, he's gonna light you up. 40 years in the game, that's how it is. So we're seeking justice. Those cops fired 19 times at that man. They struck him in his buttock because he was on the ground. They struck him in his head with a grazing wound because he was on the ground. But they were afraid and they were poorly trained and they shot with contagious fire. If you're gonna shoot, I'm gonna shoot too. Because if one of us doesn't shoot, the other one is gonna be castigated back at the station. The other one is gonna be the focus of attention back at the station. So if one shoots, the other one sure better shoot. And in Los Angeles, Tammi Mack, you know, we got a gang problem. Yeah. Some gangs wear red, some gangs wear blue. I'm concerned about the gang that wear khaki and green and are called the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That's a gang that's a scourge in our community.
The only thing we can do is take your suggestion and keep chopping that tree from a conservative Kentucky to a liberal Los Angeles. 622 police shootings and only one in the city of Los Angeles has been prosecuted. Thank you for sharing and imparting that knowledge on us, Attorney Carl Douglas. We appreciate you.